Welcome to part 2 of this 3-part series on how to use mindfulness to transform your relationship with stress. If you haven't yet watched part 1, I recommend you do that first because it lays the foundation for what we're going to do in this video. So now that you're intimately familiar with the physical sensations and mental activity that you associate with feeling stressed, you can move on to step 2 of the stress surfing technique, which is to apply mindful observation. So what do I mean by mindful observation? Well, to be mindful of something means to be alert and clearly observe it in an accepting and non-reactive way. Let's apply this definition to the physical sensations that you associate with stress. Now, I'm starting with the physical sensations for a couple of reasons. First, they tend to be easier to notice for most people than things like thoughts or other mental activity. And second, they're less seductive than things like thoughts. It's easier to observe them without getting carried away by them and lost in their content. So to be mindful of the physical sensations associated with stress, you need to first identify those sensations as being present, which you'll learn to do in part 1 of this series. And then you need to fully accept those sensations. Simply allow them to be present. Now, I know that these sensations can feel pretty uncomfortable, sometimes intensely so. So there's a natural tendency to resist these sensations or suppress them or try to get rid of them in some way. And that's totally normal. But that's exactly what I want you to practice not doing. Don't give in to the urge to push these sensations away. Instead, open up to them. Allow them to be present and be curious about them. Observe them carefully. Now, why on earth would you want to do something like this? I mean, they're really uncomfortable. They're what makes the stress so awful in the first place. And the reason you want to do this is that trying to get rid of the stressful sensations, thoughts, and so on only makes the stress worse. It fuels it. Sure, you might succeed in temporarily escaping from these feelings by distracting yourself with something or acting out on the uncomfortable sensations, but all that does is reinforce the wrong kind of habit, one of reacting to stress with avoidance rather than being able to face it squarely and work with it. I think the ideal scenario for most of us is to be able to experience these stressful feelings and keep a cool head. Be able to clearly see our situation and then consciously act in the most appropriate way. In order to do that, you need to be able to tolerate these uncomfortable sensations to a certain degree. You need to allow them to be present and observe them non-reactively. And this is what I call surfing the stress. This non-reactive observation is the hallmark of mindfulness, and it's what gives mindfulness its incredible transformative power. It's the active ingredient. So training yourself to do this is key to learn to surf the stress in your life. Now, if you find this difficult, don't worry about it. Most people find this quite hard to do when they get started. Just keep practicing, be curious, and observe those physical sensations. It will get easier, I promise. And what you're doing is you're counteracting the habitual tendency to resist or somehow push away these sensations in unskillful ways. You're beginning to form a new habit of mindful observation of the stress you're feeling. Instead of fueling the stress and reacting to it in a knee-jerk manner, you're treating it as useful information. Information that you can use to make conscious choices and take conscious action. Now that wraps up part 2 of this series on surfing stress using mindfulness. In part 3, I show you how to do the third step in this technique, which is becoming aware of how the sensations associated with stress arise and pass all on their own. And this is where your relationship with stress really starts to transform. So go ahead and give the exercise in this video a go. Practice mindfully observing the physical sensations that are present when you're feeling stressed. If you're like most people, you'll get plenty of opportunities throughout the day to try it out. Use them to the fullest. Also, if you've got a friend who you think could benefit from the stress surfing technique, send them an email with a link to this video and pass it along. I'm Grabovac. Thanks so much for watching.